next person met maybe a year ago, and she would come in, and the way the long story works is real simple. You come in, you write your name on a ticket, we throw it in a hat, and we pick your name out of the hat, right? It's very scientific. And so I've noticed when this next person would come in, she'd always tell the story, and she would just split. She would spill her life and like split, like I don't want any feedback about my bad decisions in life, or whatever else she was talking about. Which is cool, I get it. But the next time she came, I was like, you know what, F her. I'm gonna call her last and make her stay for the entire show. So I'm talking about Nancy Alverado. She's up next, and Nancy is a 5th grade teacher. She's also, for the last 5 years, been a writer on the Chula Vista Star Review. And tonight, I put her on second because I don't want her to leave either. But let's give it up for Nancy.
The first time I went to Mexico, my life wasn't really going very well. There was a situation with a guy, and so I ended up kind of having to flee. And so I ended up living in the house of an older couple, friends of mine, who had saved me once or twice when I'd gotten into little rough spots, and I knew I could count on them, Pete and Sue. And they ran a nonprofit organization which built houses in Mexico. And they invited me to join them on a trip. Well, I couldn't really say no, since I was living with them. And I figured Mexico was a really good place to cool my heels until the guy cooled his. So I found myself in a van, driving down Highway 5, in the front seat. I really wanted to be in the back seat, curled up in a little ball with my headphones on, listening to Nirvana. But the back seat was filled with a bunch of squealing teenage girls with ponytails who had obviously done these trips before and couldn't wait to get back and see Carlos and Emilio and the dogs. Me, I just sat there quietly in the front seat, watching the highway roll out in front of me and wondering where I was going and if it was going to be any better than what I was fleeing. We got to Tijuana, and I was stunned. As soon as we got off the highway, there were just these giant hillsides, and on the hillsides were houses on top of houses on top of houses on top of houses until I didn't understand how they all stayed up. Bright pink and green and purple and blue and orange, just a riot of color, and dogs everywhere and rocks. And we finally got off the main road and we're going up some twisty dirt road, and I wasn't sure that I was going to get there with all my teeth and both my kidneys intact. But finally we parked. All the little ponytail girls spilled out of the van, squealing at each other happily and fixing their ponytails. Me, I got out and I looked around. And I felt like I was in Dante's Inferno. There were piles of burning tires and seagulls squawking overhead, and dogs, and a passel of dirty, genderless children in diapers and t-shirts. And I just stood and stared, and I looked for the house that we were supposed to be replacing, and I didn't see a house. I saw a couple of sticks with some fabric strung between them, a couple of tarps, some plastic, and I realized that that's the dwelling that we were replacing. In the front yard there was a pig and a few chickens and an oil drum with a grill of a car on the front of it that they'd obviously used for cooking. And the tiniest lady I'd ever seen, her flower dress and her checkered apron and her little black plastic shoes and her braids tied together at the bottom with a piece of string. And I got called over as the only Spanish speaker in the group to translate. There wasn't a lot to translate as she greeted us, because she was just saying, gracias, 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 de veras, gracias, and making the sign of the cross over us again and again and again. But the little part that I did translate, she told us that they had dropped off the wood for her new house the night before, and that she and her sons had slept outside to make sure nobody stole the wood. And I looked around at the pigs and the chickens and the dogs and the dirt, and thought about her and those little kids sleeping outside. We were divided up into groups, and two groups. One of the groups was to build the house, and the other group was there to be present to the people. And I was really hoping that I was chosen for the building group, because I did not know a lot about building, but I knew even less about being present to the people. Well, I was chosen for the building group, and the present of the people group ran out into the middle of the dirt road with their ponytails flying, and they were just yelling out, "Andale, andale, arriba, arriba, hola," to anybody that came their way, until I just wanted to curl up in a tiny ball of embarrassment and die. But I started building. Now, the way the building worked is we were going to frame the walls. This was the 90s, so these were the good kind of walls, okay? We like these kind of walls. And we were going to frame the walls, and hopefully by the end of the day, we'd have 4 of them, and we'd stand them up and tack them together, and pretty soon she'd have something like a house. So I'm kneeling on the ground and hammering away, and I hear the ponytail girls yelling, "Hey, can I have a hammer O? I need a nail O over here, por favor. Does anybody have a dos by cuatro?" Until I wanted to stab somebody in the eyeball with a fork. And I got fed up, and I finally said, in a tone that probably wasn't very nice, "Martillo. Hammer is martillo. Clavo. Nail is clavo. Get it right." And I was kind of regretting my tone, but one of the girls turned around and said to me, "Oh my God, you speak Spanish? Oh, that is so cute! Oh my God, you have to teach us Spanish. Can you teach us Spanish?" And I nodded and smiled because I thought it was worth it if I never had to hear the word hammer O ever again in my entire life. Well, we break for lunch and we get our little sack lunches, and all of a sudden about 30,000 tiny kids come out of the woodwork and they stare at us with big, doleful eyes. And the ponytail girls are elbowing each other and going, "Oh, they want our lunches. That's so sad, they're hungry." And the boys in our group are going, "Bro, we worked all morning. We need our lunches. We're hungry." And Pete and Sue called me over to translate, which was really unfair because I knew the kids were going to ask us for food. But Pete dragged out a big bag of oranges and he started throwing them to the kids in the crowd. One over here and one over there. "Hey, otra para mi mamá. Una para mi hermano." And he just kept throwing out until every kid had about 3 oranges and scuttled off into the woodwork, and I realized that that had probably been his plan all along. The tiny lady came out with a pitcher of pink water, agua de melon, she said, cantaloupe water, and she offered me a glass of it. And I wasn't a praying person, but at that moment I kind of wished I was, because I thought I was probably going to die if I drank it. But I knew she didn't have very much resources, and she'd gone to a lot of trouble to make it, so I took a big deep breath and drank it. And I'm still alive, so it's okay. Well, the afternoon went fairly uneventfully. We continued building, and I noticed some of the neighborhood kids were hanging around giving nicknames to people in our group, Becas and Gorda and Espantapájaros. I mean, she did kind of look like a scarecrow. But I looked at them with a face that said, "You better not give me a nickname." And they did not. When the day ended, we had completed 2 walls. And so we laid them out, stacked one on top of the other, and we went to say goodbye to the tiny lady. And again, she made the sign of the cross over us again and again, "Gracias, muchas gracias." And I asked her what she was going to do that night. And she said that, she and her boys were going to sleep outside on top of the walls. And it was so dusty, and there were so many animals, and it smelled like burning tires. And again, I just pictured her sleeping out there with her little kids. And then I kind of thought, if I had just received the 2 nicest walls of my entire life, I might sleep outside on top of them also. Well, we got back to the place we were going to be staying for the week, and we were divided up into groups again. One was the cooking group, one was the prayer group, and one was the lucky people who didn't have to do anything at the time group. I was obviously lobbying for the lucky people who didn't have to do anything group, because the stove looked like a time machine. I didn't see any microwavable food in sight, and I really didn't want to be in the prayer group. I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't want to do it. But luckily for me, I was in the people who didn't have to do anything group. So the ponytail girls called me over and said, "Oh my gosh, can you teach us Spanish now?" And they got out poster paper and smelly markers and started making lists of words, hammer and nail and wood and play. And as I listened to them squeal and toss their ponytails around and write enthusiastically in big bubble letters, I thought, they're really not so bad after all. They're pretty well-intentioned kids. Well, after dinner, it was time to pray. We were standing in a circle. and I didn't really want to be standing in that circle. But I kind of thought, it's probably better than where I would have been if I'd been at home right now. And we were holding hands, and I wasn't really sure I wanted to be holding hands with the ponytail girls. But it was probably better than where I would have been if I stayed at home. So I took the hands of the people next to me, and then I realized that we had to speak. All of us. Everybody had to say something for which they were thankful. The ponytail girls were saying, I am so thankful for running water. I am so thankful that nobody smashed their thumb with a hammer. I'm thankful for my house. I am so thankful for hot water. And then it was my turn. And I looked around at the group, the ponytail girls who were, pretty sweet after all. And Pete and Sue who took me in and put up with me. And then I thought about that lady, the tiny lady outside, sleeping in the dust and the dirt on her brand new walls, surrounded by dogs and chickens, and how grateful she was and gracious. And I thought, I took a deep breath and I just said, I'm thankful for walls. Thank you.